What's up guys, it's your boy Wolf back again with another Last Epoch build guide video. This time I'm showcasing the Echo Warpath Void Knight build. I showed a glimpse of this build in my previous video, which was the Last Epoch in 2023 review video. Link is in the description for that, and there may be a link showing up on the screen now to it too. If this is the first Last Epoch video you're watching and the build looks interesting but you're not sure about what the game offers, or you're just trying to get a feel for what this game is, I really recommend watching that. But now I'm here to really deep dive this build with all of you and show you how to build and play arguably one of my favorite builds in this game, just because it's so smooth and simple and still so effective. The main concept of the build is like any SPIN2WIN build. Warpath is essentially your Cyclone from PoE or Whirlwind from Diablo if that's where you're coming from. But what makes this one so unique is how it interacts with the Void Knight mastery. As you channel and hold your channel for Warpath, every so often you leave an echo in place that also channels your Warpath for a small duration and does damage for you. This means that a lot of the time there's no lingering on packs or backtracking to kill stuff, you just speed through, and if you didn't kill initially yourself, then your echoes will clean up for you so you can just zoom straight through. Against tankier enemies or bosses, you just keep moving in a circle and you'll spawn at least 2 echoes at any time, so you turn a 1v1 essentially into a 3v1 and just burn the enemy down. So now let's go into the nitty gritty of how we make this possible. So in the interest of keeping this short and sweet, we're going to go over each skill, but we're just going to look at the main crucial nodes that make this build what it is, and then you can look at the trees and read what you're pathing over and through to understand how this all works together. So you want to work your way to a reckless spin. This with Unchained is going to reduce our channel cost, it's going to completely remove it, so we're only spending the 2 mana on the initial cost. You do lose 30% elemental resistance, but you make up for that with your gear and your passive points later on. Then we're working our way to Apocalypse Well. This is going to change our Warpath from a physical skill to a void skill. That's the whole basis of this build essentially. It's going to make our Warpath now scale with void damage increases rather than physical. It's also going to give us time rot chance and change all our bleed and ignite chance into time rot chance, which is a void damage over time debuff. That also increases our stun duration on enemies, and then with more of the deep, it's going to give us more hit damage per time rot stack against them. After that, we're just passing through to little helpful nodes like Quicksilver Wind for move speed, and then Whirling Steel for more damage, which doubles with a two-handed weapon, which is what we're using in this build, so that 40% becomes 80%, and then because I'm using a two-handed, we also go with Battlemaster's Blade, which gives us even more area on top of that. Next, we take Sigils. Sigils of Hope give us additional damage and health regen per sigil. We path this way through Iron Sigils for the tankiness, into Enduring Hope for duration, into Tetragram for an additional sigil, so it makes our 3 maximum now a 4. We come here and grab Sigils of Despair. This changes the fire damage base of the sigils to void damage now, grants increased void damage instead. We also take Last Wish, chance to summon a sigil when you kill, this helps increase our uptime. And then we also grab Burning Sign to get Ignite chance, because that Ignite chance with Apocalypse Well now becomes Time Rot chance. After that, we take Volatile Reversal from the Void Knight tree. This is going to help us regain our mana every time we use sigils at the start, and then every time we use it, it's also going to drop Void Rifts where we started and where we ended, which do a bit of damage over time in the area, and it's going to give us buffs like attack speed and move speed, which help our Warpath really well, and as well as increasing damage, void damage taken by enemies from our Void Rifts. We also take Ancient Reversal and Traveler's Fatigue for the cooldown recovery speed and additional reversal time. So this helps us just hit our 4 sigils at the start, proc a Volatile Reversal and get all our mana back. That's what that's for. We also take Anomaly. This is going to help us for our tankier enemies and our boss fights. We come here through a mission into Borrowed Time. This is going to make it an instant cast with a cooldown instead of having a cast time. That helps us cast this without stopping our Warpath channel, because every time you stop, you are vulnerable, you take more damage. So that's going to counter that. We come here and we take Immediacy from Void Touch into Immediacy. This now bypasses half the effect of this, so instead of having to recast it and make it a double cast, it's now a single cast and all the effects are triggered instantly. We come down here for Time Rot duration with this and Void Pen with Time Rot, as well as more duration on the effect of Anomaly and then void damage taken for a certain amount of time. When they come back, we take Time Bubble, so now instead of Anomaly putting someone forwards and backwards and whatnot, it's now just going to drop a Time Bubble, which is going to have the effects of Anomaly within that bubble for that duration. And then we take these nodes just to buff the effects of what our time bubble does. So here it's going to last longer. Here the effects last 2 seconds extra even when enemies walk out of it, because the time bubble is a stationary thing that you drop down and it stays in one place. We also get manipulation for the attack speed for us while we're inside the area of the time bubble, and then cooldown recovery speed as well. Finally, in my flexi slot, I call this a flexi slot because you can choose a few options. I've gone for shield rush, pathing into dark rush here so that it no longer requires a shield, and then void breaker for some void damage between these two, and then some mana efficiency here with rush mastery, protective speed so we're taking less damage while we're using this if we want to charge through packs, and then warrior's entrance and splintering impact for some damage. There's a few options here. You can even take lunge if you want to use lunge instead. This is nice because you can get some invulnerability while lunging. You get some cooldown recovery whenever you use different attacks. You can path over here if you want Cull the Weak, gives you a kill threshold. The only reason why I don't use lunge is because I find that I don't actually use it a whole lot. Because lunge is targeted, you have to use it against you have to have a targetable enemy to be able to use this, and using it from pack to pack defeats the point of Warpath, which is a movement ability in itself. It also costs 9 mana, and every time you use this from pack to pack, you're depleting your mana pool, and eventually you might find yourself not having the mana to actually even cast your Warpath. The other option that you could use is Void Cleave, because this has some movement on it as well, and you can turn it into a movement skill specifically and get more distance on it. It does do a lot of damage because it is scaling with all of our void damage and melee damage and area damage, but it has a bit of a I don't know how to explain it. It's a bit of a stutter. When you try to cast this, you pause for a second and then you move, and it doesn't move you as far as you could move with lunge or shield rush, which is why I prefer to use shield rush instead. Shield rush is really nice just to charge through packs if you're trying to rush to an objective, or to dodge boss mechanics that otherwise you might struggle to avoid. In terms of the passive skill tree, it's quite straightforward. In the Sentinel base tree, we're just picking up things that give us health, strength, and resistances. So here we've got Fearless for the vitality, Juggernaut for strength and resistances. We take Armor Clad because it's one of the best sources of any kind of damage reduction as a Sentinel and as a Void Knight. Gives us flat armor and damage reduction from nearby enemies. We also put 4 points into Valiant Charge. This gives us cooldown recovery on our Shield Rush or our Lunge, or our Void Cleave if you change that into a travel skill as well, and it gives you some health. And then we take 5 points into Blade Master, and this is going to give us increased attack speed or cast speed while you have a sword or axe equipped, and in this build we are using a two-handed axe, so we get 30% free attack speed, which scales really well with our Warpath. We put 20 points into the Paladin tree. Into Defiance, gives us elemental resistance 21% with 7 points, which almost completely negates the downside from the Reckless Spin node on our Warpath tree. We also put 10 points into Valor, max that out just for the flat health, and then Holy Icon again for more health, and some necrotic resistance helps us gear better as well if we pick up more resistances from our tree, but we do all of this just so we can pick up the Sigils of Hope skill. And then finally, all the rest of your points are going to the Void Knight tree. Main ones that you need to pick up are World Eater. Max this out with 6 points. It's a huge amount of leech, and on its own it pretty much does enough to help us leech and sustain our health the whole time. You need to pick up Void Corruption. Crit multiplier per point spent in the Void Knight tree, and obviously as a Void Knight you're putting most of your points into this tree, so it's just free crit multi. So once you put this in, you just look at the number here. I've got 63. That means I've got 63% crit multi for free just from having this tree spec the way it is. Other nodes you need to pick up are Echoing Strikes, Time Legion, and Avatar Regret. This together is going to give you 30% more chance for echoes. The more echoes you have, the easier it is to clear packs. You've got more echoes proccing, especially on bosses. When you're moving in circles, you get more echoes. The more echoes you have, the more damage you're doing. This is what helps you enable that 1v3 kind of playstyle against bosses. At the same time, Time Legion does a few extra things. It also gives you some time rot chance and attack speed, which also work really well with this build. I also take Void Flux, which is almost similar to a Cheat Death. When you drop to 20% or below, it basically gives you a free anomaly effect on an enemy. And then the rest of the points we're just putting into things like Strength and Health, Vitality and Health. You've got some increased Void damage in areas, increased melee damage, more health and resistances here. The rest of it is just speccing out for more Void damage in general. In terms of gear, it's quite straightforward. There's only a few uniques that you need. Siphon of Anguish, must have for this build. It's almost basically built for this build. Implicit is free elemental res, so together, I mean, this really helps you gear out your elemental resistances really easily. It also gives you more leech rate, move speed, Doom effect, and void pen on Doom. Doom effect is a debuff that increases the amount of melee damage you do to an enemy, which is really nice. So this really works well with this build. The other ring you can use is a Quicksilver Coil. You want to use this up until you get a Wings of Argentus on the body. It's going to give you the melee attack speed as well as the haste effect, which gives you more move speed and attack speed. And until you get Wings of Argentus, if you're able to find make a legendary one with crit chance, once you unlock crit in this build, then that's really nice to have as well. For your belt, you want a Shattered Chains, which drops from the Shade of Orobyss. This gives you flat melee damage, melee void, sorry. It gives you increased melee damage, more melee per stack of Doom, and increased armor. For our boots, we're going with a Dark Stride. This is another crucial part of this build that you have to have. It gives you move speed, it gives you flat melee void, it gives you increased void, and it gives you move speed per added flat melee void. So the more flat void that you stack, the faster you can move, and eventually you want to find a legendary one that you can put even more move speed onto. And then finally, the last unique you need to have, and this is what absolutely is like make or break for this build basically, is the Apathy's Maw. Two-handed axe also drops from the Shade. This gives you a huge amount of flat melee void damage, which works so well with the move speed that you get from the Dark Stride. It also gives you a 100% chance to apply Doom on hit, increased Doom duration, and even more Void Pen with the Doom, which you're already getting with your ring as well as giving you increased melee and increased leech. And what you're targeting is a 1LP, at least a 1LP version of this, that you can get some melee crit strike chance onto, and you need that to be able to unlock crit on this build. It does work without crit. It does still do supremely well without crit. I spent a lot of time playing this build without any crit at all, but if you can get the crit on there, it becomes even better. Now ideally when you do make a legendary, you want to find one that gets a T6 affix of melee crit chance on it, which is about 13%. I only got 9% on here, I only got a T5 on it, but it still does the job. The rest of your gear is quite straightforward. You're just looking for health, so increased health, flat health, resistances wherever you need it. Attack speed on your gloves is nice to have. Chance to shred armor, frailty on hit is nice to have. On your body, if you don't have an Argentus, you want +2 to Warpath as well on the prefix slot. More skill points, more damage. On your head as well, you want +2 to Anomaly. More points into the skill, becomes more damage, more buff effects. And then the relic is a big one as well, because this is where you're going to look for the all resistances while channeling affix. And ideally you want to find one with a T6 version of this, which I think is about 36%. It makes gearing out really easy because you don't have to look for as much resistance and everything else, but it also makes you really tanky as long as you're casting your Warpath, which is a channeled skill. In the final slots, you're just looking for things like resistances, as I said, crit multi if you've got crit unlocked, crit chance if you need it. On your neck you could also look for void penetration. At the end game, if you find it, you want to swap out your body piece for a Wings of Argentus, and if you manage to find one with 1 LP, then ideally what you're looking to move on to that is the +2 to Warpath, or +3 or +4 if you find those affixes. That's what you're looking for, and when you do that you can replace the Quicksilver Coil with any other ring that's got good stats, or best in slot would be something like an Oshiron with LP, and you put crit strike chance onto that. But other than that, that's pretty much all there is to the gear. Quite straightforward. Feel free to pause the video here and take a screenshot. In terms of idols, you're looking for 4 grand idols which all have Warpath area, and then something that pairs well or combos well with this build. So you can look for things like shred armor and increased melee void. Those are probably the best. I've also got slow with void and inflict time rot on hit, just because I haven't found duplicates of shred armor or melee void yet. But those are the main ones that you want. And then you're filling the rest out with flat health and increased health, and then resistances if you need to balance out your resistances or finish those off a bit more. In terms of blessings, drop rate ones, the ones that matter, are Grand Idol drop rate. You need this just to be able to find more of these that give you Warpath area. You also want the increased relic drop rate, which increases your chances of finding a relic that has the T6 resistances while channeling affix. And then you want Grand Favor of the Wengari, increased 200 axe drop rate. This is going to help you find more exalted 200 axes for a high chance of finding the T6 melee crit strike chance affix to put onto your Apathy's Maw to make that legendary one and unlock crit. The other two drop rate ones don't matter as much. You can take whatever. I've got prefix and skill shard. You can go prefix and suffix. You can pretty much throw whatever you want on there. In terms of combat ones, the ones that you have to have are Depths of Infinity. You want the grand version of this ideally, which gives you a chance to shred Void Res on hit. Obviously, this is huge for our damage because we are doing completely just purely void damage. Grand Crash of the Waves. This is going to help in terms of offensively and defensively increase stun chance. The more you're stunning bosses, the less damage you're taking, so that's huge. Must have is a Grand Survival of Might. This is probably the first one you probably ideally want to target. 70% crit strike avoidance at max, but you just want to look for something between a 60 and 70 roll ideally. That's going to help you that, and one crit strike avoidance roll on one piece of your gear, and that will help you cap out your crit strike avoidance or get close to cap. As long as you're between 90 and 100%, you're fine. Then you also want Grand Bulwark of the Tundra for armor. Increased armor is always nice to have, and armor is especially nice on melee builds. Right now I'm at 51%, so that's giving me 35% mitigation against non-physical and 51% against physical. And then you pair that with Grand Patience of Herkir, which gives you more armor while channeling, and now that becomes 64% physical and 45% non-physical while I'm channeling my Warpath. So it's even more damage reduction, even more tankiness, even more survivability. Alright, now it's time for the fun part of this guide, and the part that you've all been waiting for, which is the showcase. You want to see how this build works in action. We're going to start with an empowered mono. I haven't checked all my monos, I've just come back from holiday and I don't remember where I was, but I think this is the highest I've got so far because I think most things were reset. But we're going to do this on a 217 corruption. Let's just do this one and show you the way this build works. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. When we eventually load into this echo, and we're in. And now all we're going to do at the start is we're going to pop our sigils, hit our reversal, get our mana pool back, and then we're just going to go. We'll start channeling, very straightforward. And essentially all you're going to do is you'll see the echoes proccing behind me, so you're not going to stop and backtrack for anything. You're just going to try and hit everything once, pass through so that your echoes proc where you want them to, so that you are eventually burning and killing the things that you want to. And because you do need to kill a certain amount of things to proc certain effects on the objectives, like kill a certain amount of enemies to reveal a location. You can actually also proc shrines without actually having to stop your cast, which is really nice. But all we're doing is we're going to zoom through, hit things, and work our way to the objective as quick as possible.
Stand down or die.
And then we click that. Again, we didn't even have to stop channeling our Warpath for it. And then for objectives like this especially, it's so simple and easy because all you're going to do is just keep moving in a circle. And every time you do that, you're going to keep proccing your echoes, and any mobs that spawn near there are just going to burn. And when I say burn, I mean like get shredded, not actually burn like fire burn. And then when you do have and it's as simple as that. And then when you do have certain mobs that aren't dying or take a bit more, you can go and circle on them a bit more. You can also just drop a bubble to burn them down faster. Pick up your loot, check what you have. Do we want this? Let's take it. And there we go. It's as simple as that. And that's how simple and easy playing this build on an empowered mono is. Finally guys, I'm going to leave you with some footage of a Shade at about 220 corruption. I wanted to showcase how simple these fights can be on this build. But otherwise, that's it from me for now in this guide. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it informed you in some way. As always, unleash anything and everything you have to say in the comments below, whether you like the build or not, if you've played it already or are planning to, and any other builds you want guides for. I'm having a lot of fun making these videos and there's way more to come, so keep supporting the channel guys. Drop a like, a subscribe would really go a long way to helping the channel grow, and it is free. And links to my socials are in the description. Check out my Twitch, I will be streaming regularly from now on, so come check that out if you want to watch more of this game live, learn some more about the game, or even just have fun hanging out. But again, that's it from me for now. Thanks for watching, I've been Wolf, peace.